Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Destiny from Desphixs and welcome back to another video in the Django e-commerce. In this one, we'll get started working with the vendor dashboard. That is what we're working on. Hopefully you will enjoy the video and learn something new. So let's get started. So let's begin by opening up our code editor, and I'm going to close up all these opened files that we have now so that I can start up with a clean space. Okay. And I think we should already have the vendor app. Let's see. There you go. We have the vendor app. So let's open up the vendor app views PY. And in here is where we'll be writing all the functions that the vendor will be needing. Let's begin by importing a couple of things that we will need. Like I'm going to say from Django.contrib.auth.decorators imports login required. Good. And let's also import the models. So from store.models, or rather I'm going to say from store import models as store_models. And I also want to import the vendor models. So I'm going to say from vendor import models as vendor_models. Good. And when you've done this, I believe for now that's everything that we will be needing. So let's go ahead and create the dashboard function. I'm going to say at login required, which basically means that before a user can access the vendor dashboard, or rather before a vendor can access the vendor dashboard, they need to be logged in. So that is why I am passing in this decorator called login required. I'm going to create the function and I will call it dashboard, and it should just take a request parameter in here. Now we need a couple of things for the vendor dashboard, like the products, the orders, the revenue, notification, reviews, rating, and also their monthly sales. So let's start getting all these informations. I'm going to start off with products. So I'll say store models.products.objects.filter. I'm using the filter method because I want to fetch multiple products that belongs to a particular vendor. If you want to get just one product that belongs to a particular vendor, then you should use the get method. So I'm going to say filter by vendor should be equal to requests.user. So this vendor keyword over here is basically the field that we have in the products model somewhere here. And based on the fact that this vendor field is linked to the user model, that is why we are filtering by requests.user over here. Before I continue, I want to save and make my file to be autosave, okay, so that it saves automatically without me having to manually save it. Good. Now I have fetched the products. Let's also fetch the orders. So I'll say orders should be equal to store models.order.objects.filter again, and I want to filter by vendors should be equal to requests.user. Now in the order model, if you open it, you see that vendors is not a foreign key, but a many-to-many field to the user model, which means this field over here will hold multiple vendors that are included in this order, because a user is going to make a purchase of many items from different vendors. So we link different vendors to one order. Now, when you say, hey, filter by vendors should be request.user, what this is going to do is it will scan through all the vendors that we have in the order model and fetch only the orders where the request.user is included in the order. I hope that makes sense. After we fetch this one, let's also fetch the revenue. And this is going to be the total revenue. So what I'm going to say is store models dot order item. Then I want to filter again dot objects dot filter by, let's still filter by vendor should be equal to request.user. Take note of this. This one is vendors. This one is vendor. An item is associated with one vendor, but an order will be associated with many vendors. That is why we said vendors here. And even if you look at the field, you'll see that it's called vendors. But for the other item, if you look at the field, you'll see that it's called vendor somewhere here. Good. So with that, I don't only want to leave the filter. I also want to add another method that is called aggregate. Now, this method is going to help us do things like add up the total amounts of order, or check the average, or count how many orders that we have. That is basically what the aggregate method helps us to do. But in this case, we just want to sum the total of all the orders. I'm going to say total, which is a variable, and this variable should be equal to Then I want to call the models. Okay, we don't have it yet, so let's import it. So somewhere at the top, I'm going to say from Django.db import models. Very good. And now here I will say total should be equal to models.sum. Then I'm going to call the sum method. And what do we want to sum here? Now you can sum whatever you want from the other item model. In this case, I want to sum the total. The total should then return back what the revenue is. So over here, I'm going to say total. Then I'll pass it in here. Very good. Now, whenever we call this revenue here, it's going to look something like this. It will be like maybe an object. Then you see something like revenue. And then we get the amount maybe in 100 USD like this. But this is not what I want. I want, as soon as I call this revenue, I just want to return 100. Then we can append a $sign at the back like this. Okay. So how do we do that? Now, all you just need to do is say, after summing this, then return the total. So grab the total from the dictionary. Okay. Now, if you don't understand that explanation, let me say it again. Whenever you call this revenue, the default value that it will give is a dictionary that is going to have revenue like this. Then you get the total. And to grab items from a revenue, you need to get it using the key, right? That is why we said, hey, whenever we have summed up everything, grab the total. So total is this one over here. We're basically grabbing this. So what I was trying to say is this. Whenever you call this revenue without actually grabbing this total here like this, it will return the value like this. But that's not what we want to do. What we'll have to do if we don't actually specifically return total is in our template, we can then say revenue.total. But I don't want to do it this way. Rather, as soon as I call revenue, I want to grab the value. So what I will do now is make sure that over here, I am getting the .total. Does it make sense? So that in my template, I don't need to do revenue.total, but I will just do revenue. Okay. Very good. So after we've done that, let's also fetch all the notifications for a particular vendor. So for this one, I'm going to say vendor models.notification.objects.filter by. Then we want to filter notification by user should be equal to requests.user, and also seen should be equal to false, because I want to get only the notifications that haven't been seen by the vendor. Let's also get all their reviews by saying store models.reviews.objects.filter by. What do we want to filter by? Product__vendor should be equal to requests.user. Now, what does this mean? In the reviews model, we don't have any field called vendor, but we have a field called product that will make a reference back to the products model that has a field called vendor. So we can use something that is called a field lookup. Now, this is as good as saying, hey, say product.vendor should be equal to request.user. But based on the fact that we are on the side of the filter method, which is the left side, you can't use a chaining, but a field lookup. Okay. So we say product__vendor. Think of this __ as a dot, okay? But it's called field lookup, whereas the dot is called chaining, okay? Now that is it. Another thing that I want to get is the rating. So for rating, I'm going to say, you know what? Rating should look identical to the reviews. So I'll duplicate it and just change the reviews keyword here to rating. Then after we have gotten everything, we need to aggregate again. So for this one, we'll be getting the average rating of 1 to 5. So from 1 to 5, and we have maybe 200 rating, we just need to get the average rating. So I'm going to say average, which is a variable, should be equal to models.avg, which is a method that was given to us by Django. Now, whatever field you pass in here, for example, the rating field, it will get us the average of that rating. And just like we did with the total, I don't want to have to say rating.avg in the template. So that is why I will immediately pass in avg over here, avg. Can you see it here? Good. So now after we've done that, the last thing is to get the monthly sales. So I'll say monthly_sales should be equal to none. Very good. Now all I just need to do is get the monthly sales. Let me define a function that is going to get the monthly sales. So I'll say define get_monthly monthly underscore sales. Then we just need to leave it like that. Don't pass in anything. So all you need to do here is say monthly underscore sales should be equal to parentheses. Now in this parentheses, it's basically will be a filter. So I want to filter by store models dot objects dot object. Okay, not that, my bad. Store models dot order item dot objects dot filter. Okay, before you could even filter, you could firstly annotate. So what do we want to annotate? I'm going to say month should be equal to truncate month. So trunc month. Then I grab dates. So let's import trunc month and I will explain what's going on here. Trunc month is going to be coming from django.db.models.function. So from django.db.models.function, I want to import the trunc month. So what will the trunc month do? As soon as you pass in dates over here, we have dates that comprises of the day, month, and year with some time in hours, minutes, and seconds. So as soon as you pass in the date field and call it with the trunc month, all you to do is grab the month from that long time that includes dates, day, and year, time, hour, and seconds. It will just grab only the month from there. Okay, so that is what the trunc month will do. Now, after we've truncated months, let's just grab the month field from that. So I'll say dot values, and I want to grab the month field alone. Very good. And now let's annotate again and count all the orders that we've had. So I'm going to say dot annotate again. And this time around, I want to say order underscore count, which is a variable, should be equal to models dot. Then I pass in the count method. And what do I want to count? Count by ID. What does this mean? This means we are not summing anything. We're not getting the average of anything. We're just getting the total monthly sales, the total sales that we have made in a month. And finally, I will order by month. Then I will explain what's going on. So order by, then month. And we are done. Okay, this function is to return something. And that is going to be the monthly sales. So what's going on here? Firstly, we have this monthly sales here, and we're wrapping it in a bracket. So what we did over here was say, hey, store.order items.objects.annotate by month is equal to trunc month date, which means we can now say values and grab month from this annotation that we wrote over here, which means this alone will get us items filtered by months. Now, what we did over here was pretty much say, hey, get us all the order counts. So now we can say something like monthly sales.order count, and we grab the order counts by saying models.the count method, and we are counting IDs. So counting IDs means that we are not summing up the ID. If you were summing up ID, this is what will happen. So we have a hash. Let's say we have IDs 1, 3, and 4. Now, if you use the sum method here like this, what will happen is you will say 1 plus 3, 4, 4 plus 4, 8. Now it will sum it up. But if you're using the count method, what it will say is count this 1, 2, 3. So this is total of 3 items that we have sold in a month. Does this make sense? Yep, that is it. So after you've done this, you just need to say monthly sales should be equal to get monthly sales. So we then call this function that we created over here. We called it here. So do you see how it makes our code to look very clean? We don't have to write down all this in here. Put it in the helper function and call the helper function over here. So after we have done all this now, let's go ahead and create a new context because we want to pass all these items into our template. So we'll say context, and I'll be starting with, you know what? I don't want to have to type out all this one by one. So I'm just going to up all this, then put it over here. Good. Like this. And there you go. Finish. So what I just did was use a very simple shortcut that helps me copy everything over here. And how did I put the cursor at the back of everything? You put your cursor where you want to start from, top or bottom, then hold Control and Alternate and click on your up arrow key to go up by putting the cursor everywhere. Now, how did I put the cursor at the front of everything over here? So after you've done this, make sure that you copy I just highlight everything by holding Ctrl and Shift and hitting my right arrow. Highlight everything. Then I come over to where I want to paste it. Put my cursor there and paste. This is how it's going to look. So all I do is highlight and arrange it. Arrange the indentation. And then I make sure to hold down Shift and click the up arrow so it includes the products in the highlights. Then I hold down Shift and alternate and hit I on my keyboard to put the cursor at the front of everything. You could either put it at the front of everything or put it like this. Either way is going to work. Then again, I held down Ctrl and Shift and clicked the right arrow key to select everything. Then added the quotes, came to the front, put a column, and pasted what I still had on my clipboard and added the comma. Well, if it's difficult for you to follow like this, please type it out one after the other, as that should make it more simpler for you to follow. Okay, so after we've done this, the only thing I don't need right now is just the monthly sales. I'll get rid of that for now. Let's return a template. I'm going to say return vendor, and I want to pass in requests, and also vendor slash dashboard.html. And all I just need to pass in here is context. Very good. So after you've done this, we're done with the dashboard view. Let's just create a new URL in the vendor models. I'm going to say urls.py. And we need to import a couple of things from Django.urls. We need to import path. And also from vendor, we need to import views and also create the app name. The app name is vendor, and then create the URL patterns. This should be path. And as soon as we come over to the slash dashboard, rather, you could just say dashboard slash, I want to visit the vendor dashboard. And the views associated with that will be views.dashboard. Views, not view, dot dashboard. Very good. And please give it a name of dashboard. All right, that is pretty much it. Now that we have done all this, the next thing on our templates, on our list rather, will be to create a template. So how do we create a template? Now scroll down to where we have the templates folder and create a new file, rather folder in here called vendor. And in the vendor, create a new file in it called dashboard.html. Good. Now in here is basically where you have to paste in the dashboard HTML for the vendor. So what you need to do is scroll down to your templates, the raw templates, and in the vendor, grab the dashboard HTML like this and just paste it down here in your own template file. Good. So after you've pasted this in, this is everything that we have. That's it. Let's go ahead and try viewing this in our browser. So this is our browser. I will open it up fully, and then we can sign in firstly. So there you go. And let's wait for the captcha. Click on the captcha and we should log in. Okay, we are now logged in. See, you are logged in. So let's manually come over to vendor slash dashboard and see what we have. Well, now it's showing page not found. And why is that? That is because in the main URLs for the project, we haven't told Django that, hey, there is a new app that has URLs called vendor. So over here, just like we did with the customer, you need to include the vendor.urls and also the vendor. Good. So with this now, allow your code to, or your server to reload. And when we get back here, all right, we can still see page not found. Let's break out from our terminal and run it again. So now that it's running again, let's see what we have. If I open this up and reload, all right, can you see this is now working better? So what I can do now is in the dashboard HTML, let's configure some things here. I'll begin by collapsing this and this. And I want to remove all this head. I don't need it. And also all the scripts. I don't need it. And we need to bring in some things like the extends. So extends from partials.base.html. I hope that's what I called it. In fact, if you don't want to have to type out all this, if it's too stressful, you could copy it from the customer. But we've created it in the customer in the past videos. So you could just copy, open up any file, take this slide at this line, and in the dashboard HTML, we just need to put it here and here. Good. So with this now, let's see what we have. If we get back here and reload. All right, that is beginning to look very good, right? Yep, it is. So now all we just need to do is, okay, I think we have two headers over here. Now it's up to you how you want to work with this. I'm just going to remove this one header. I don't need that. And reload this page. Good. This looks very, very much better, right? So what we should now do is start replacing all this informations here with the actual informations that we have for the template. So how do we get started with this? We have already written all the functionality to perform all these operations. So what we'll be doing now is going through our function. Let me open that up so we can see. So, oops, that was a mistake. Go back. Okay. So now this is our function here. It's called products, orders, revenue, notice, reviews, and rating. Good. So now in the dashboard, let's start changing them all up. We'll create sidebar after this. Okay. So for the product, instead of 13, you want to say products.count. Let's see what we have before we continue. So when we reload, see, we have two products. Very good. Now, same thing should happen for orders. So we will have orders.count. And we also need another one for revenue. So you can see that now when we say revenue, that is not spelled correctly. So spell it correctly and let's reload. You can see that we have 9,251. Very good. But I don't really like the way it's looking over here. So let's add some formatting to it. One of the formatting will be the float format. So I'm just going to say float format 2. That is because I want it to have 2 decimal points or decimal places there. See, 5.0 now. Good. And I also want to add int comma. So int comma. And let's see what we have. See, it now adds a comma to it. So it knows how to separate those numbers by a comma. And also, if for any reason a user or a vendor don't have any sales yet, the default value that we should show them should be 0.00. Very good. So after you've done that one, we also need to change for notifications and also for rating. So for notifications, I'm going to say notice.count. And we need to do the same thing for reviews. So instead of 32, we say reviews.count. And we need to do the same thing for rating. So instead of saying rating.count or anything, just say rating. And I want to add a float format to it. Please, this should be a pipe and not a column. Add a pipe over there. Good. So now when we reload, you can see everything still looks perfectly well as they are. Let me reload again. All right, there you go. Everything looks good here. The last thing on our list should be to loop through the product and we should be done. So how do we do that? That is actually quite simple. All we need to do is get back to our code, and here that we have 16 products, just say products.count. And then over here where we have single, I want you to collapse all these singles and remove 3 of them, leaving only 1. So now we need to loop, say for P in products, then paste what I cut, and now we should see just 2 of them here. Good. 1 and 2. So after you've done this, you can start changing up the informations, like the source. I could say p.image.url. And now when I reload, there you go. We have the images showing up. We could also change the title. We could say p.title. Or I think I called it name. So p.name. And there you go. We have MacBook Pro and Sony A7C. And also let's change up the price, the rating, the reviews, and all this other informations. So starting with the rating, I have a very long code that makes the rating get formatted. I'll look for a better way to do this in the future, okay? So that we don't have to go through the stress of making our rating responsive with this long code. So as soon as I get a better way to do it, I'm going to let everyone know. I'm going to paste this here. I copied it from the index HTML. We already had it written there. So I copied it and I'm just going to paste it down here. Okay. And when you reload, you should now see 1 and 3. Good. Now let's change the price, rating, reviews, and orders. For the price, instead of this, it's going to be p.price. Let's see what we have. Good. Now make sure to add a float format and also an int comma to it. So int comma is going to format it and float format is going to add decimal places to it. And also for the rating, you want to change it up. What we could just say over there is p dot average underscore rating. And I'm adding a float format to it, so it doesn't show 3.5000000, but instead just 3.5. Okay, we seem not to have any rating for this item yet. So the default should be no, then it will say rating. So see, no rating, but this one is 3.5 rating. Does this make sense? So for the reviews, what do we also need to do? Instead of 6, you could say p.reviews.all.count. Good. And when you reload, you should see 0 reviews, 2 reviews. Finally, for the orders, do we have the code that checks the total order? Let's see if we already have the code. Open up the products model and let's see if we have a method to do that. Yep, see, vendor orders. We already wrote the method. So we're going to say p.vendororders.all.count. So this is going to help us count how many orders we have. You can see 11 orders here and 5 orders here. Very, very, very good. Now the last thing is to work with these buttons that we have. But for now, we don't have any of this. The only one that we have is for the view, to view the product. So I'm going to say URL and then store product underscore detail and p.slug as the parameter so that we can access the product. So now when you reload, you can click on this to view a particular product like this. Good. I hope that makes sense. So yep, that was pretty much it for the dashboard. Pretty simple. The next one, we'll get started with listing products. Or you know what, let's even list products now. There's no need to wait for the next one. So listing products is actually quite simple. All you need to do is just create a new function that is going to list the products for us. So back to the views PY. Over here, I'm going to say add login required. And then we create a new view called products. This is going to take requests and also a template like this. I copied this template here. I want to replace the dashboard HTML with products HTML. And the only line of code I need is just this one here. Okay. So take that, put it here. Then you can create your context. So context for products would be what? Products. Good. So with this now, all we need to do is create a template for the products in the vendor dashboard. So in the vendor dashboard here, we only have dashboard. Create a new one called products.html. And also you already know the drill. We need to create a URL for this. So I'm going to say views products. Please add a comma here, or there's going to be a problem. So I'm going to say views products. The name should be products and the route should be product. So this is route and this is name. Okay. So when you have done this, if you manually try accessing it here, you should be able to see it open up a page. There you go, a blank page. So what I want to do is this, take everything in the dashboard and paste it in the products. Okay. So now we should be able to see the dash products looking like the dashboard. But what I just want to do now is remove the dashboard overview. Okay. So to do that, look for the dashboard overview. Should be somewhere here. Just going to take this and cut it out. I don't need that anymore. So now we should be left with only the products. Good. And also remove the view all products. We don't need that. And I'm going to give you one more assignment before we go. So what I want you to do is, using the method that we used to create paginations for the customer, I want you to also create paginations for the vendors. Okay, so create paginations for the vendors to paginate the products by 10 or 12 items, depending on how many that you want to use. Okay, so now that we are done with that, let's create a sidebar. What I'm going to do now is, in the vendor, I'm going to create a new file called sidebar.html and take one of the sidebars here. So I think I've got, let me see. Okay, I'm going to take this, the whole column 12 that we have here, and put it in the sidebar. And now in the products, we shouldn't see any sidebar anymore. See, nothing. But now in the products, when you type out the include keyword and you include vendor/sidebar.html, you should see the sidebar coming in again. There you go. Which means we can now take this and put it in the dashboard, right? Let's look for the dashboard. Should be somewhere here, and replace the dummy sidebar with it. So minimize this and replace it with this one. Very good. Now let's update the sidebar HTML. We need to do a couple of things here, starting with this. So instead of showing this, I'm going to say URL, and then we say vendor/dashboard.html. Good. So after changing the dashboard, let's do the same thing for the products. So for the products HTML, I'm just going to say, whoops, I think over here I made a mistake. I said vendor/dashboard.html. That is not wrong. That is not right. So instead, I'm going to say vendor, then dashboard. Same thing is going to happen here. I'm going to say vendor, then column products. Let's see what we have. So when we reload this page, this is going to take us back to the dashboard, and this is going to bring us to the vendor. Very good. For us to change this active here, let's write a simple conditional statement in here. We will say if, then we want to check if request.path is equal to /vendor/dashboard. That is only when we want to show the active class. But before I do this, let's see what the request.path is. So I'm gonna like render the request.path here. So I'll see what it is. See, it's vendor/product. Very good. So it's working. Now remove this. This if statement, you can put it on one line like this. And then you could take this and put it in all the classes. So over here, we can have another class that has the if statement. But since this one is product, we can check if request.path is equal to vendor/product. Then that is when we want it to be active. So now if you reload, see, the product is active. When we get to the dashboard is active. That is pretty much it, guys. Let me know if there is something that you don't understand in the comment section, and I'll be more than happy to help you out. In case I'm not able to see your comment in the comment section, you can also shoot a mail to desphixs@gmail.com, and I'll be very happy to help you out. That is going to be it. I hope to see you in the next one. And until then, much love. Peace out.